We will remember the channel forever. I hope so. Just remember the good parts. Not the bad parts that I had to private for reasons.
Hey guys, it's me, Riley. So a few days ago, as of recording this video, the Eddsworld Fan Movie had a live stream with Pip, who was the director and one of the writers, just being on camera and stating that the fan movie's over. It's not gonna be finished. And, I called it. sorry, sorry. In all seriousness, I always kind of had the feeling, ever since like 2017, that the movie would never really work. Despite me predicting it to crash and burn for different reasons than what the actual reason was. I thought it was actually gonna get made. It does kind of suck that the fan movie was never released, but as you can probably tell, I was never too attached to it in the first place. Though I was always curious about it. It is a shame that I never got to like make a review of the movie because I would definitely have a lot to talk about, and it was always in my plans that once it would get made, good or bad or anywhere in between, I was going to review it. I felt like it would have been necessary. And I already have like these thoughts in my head of like there are so many things I could talk about if the movie ever came out, that I would mention in like a review of it. So I'm using this video to basically give my parting words, I guess, on it. Basically say what I would have mentioned if the movie ever got released and I made a review of it. And this video is going to be very unstructured, as you might be able to tell right now. I do have a basic script in front of me that I wrote basically in one go, that I'm going to follow very loosely, but I just want to talk about a few of the things that I've been thinking about in regards to the movie recently that I never thought of or forgot to mention in my previous videos on the project. And also, just a disclaimer, I don't hate the people who chose to work on the movie. Let me make that very clear. They have all been incredibly kind to me in response to my videos, maybe even too kind in some cases, because I was pretty harsh at points. But I think they understand that the videos were not intended to be taken 100% seriously 100% of the time. Unlike the comment sections of those videos. You have no idea. You have no idea how many comments I've gotten of people saying, "Oh, you're being so disrespectful to the creators of the fan movie," when I'm stating opinions that even they agree with. Like saying, "Hey, Best of Both Worlds is bad." And people are appalled by the fact that I would even imply that it's bad. And like, considering the fact that the people running the fan movie chose to private Best of Both Worlds, maybe makes you think, maybe they agree with me. It's so weird that Best of Both Worlds is some people's hill to die on, but that's a whole other discussion. But this isn't about Best of Both Worlds. This is just a bunch of random thoughts I've had about the movie as a whole that I kind of just want to leave out there, since I'll never really get to review anything else they release. At least I'm not planning on doing that. So I guess for context, I've made a couple videos on the movie previously, as you might be able to tell. One of them that I kind of want to talk about in depth, the first one I made, was this terrible garbage, I hate it, CinemaSin style, in quotes, review of Best of Both Worlds. It technically has more views than the public video I have on my channel about the fan movie, which is, it's sad. It's sad that my most popular and viewed videos are my worst videos, which is why the majority of my most popular videos are unlisted. Even though they are still accessible through my channel, they are unlisted because I am not proud of them, and I do not want people to accidentally stumble across them. So this video is accessible through my channel. It is unlisted, but it is still accessible through the playlists, like, little tab on my channel. So if you really want to see it, that's where it is. But Fair warning, it's not a review, and it was made by a stupid 14-year-old, and it mostly just contains, like, insults towards people who did nothing wrong, including, like, a voice actor for not getting a perfect impression right, which is a stupid excuse for a quote-unquote criticism of a fan-made short. Like, with the amount of things that Best of Both Worlds has for me to make fun of, that was what I decided to make fun of. And that just tells you everything about 14-year-old me. If I could travel back in time and slap 14-year-old me, I would. I gladly would. Like, what was I thinking when I made that video? I will never know. But, middle school's a hell of a drug. I also made a response video to that previous video I just mentioned, where I just sit in front of a webcam and talk about Best of Both Worlds. And it's admittedly better than the video I was responding to, that previous video, but it's still not the best. It's unscripted, and I think it's one of my first, if not the first unscripted video I made, and I feel like my points in that video were incredibly confusing, and some of it was still pretty unjustified. Like, I was trying to justify the fact that I went so hard on this voice actor who did nothing wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. But, you know, regardless of that, it's just, yeah, I was a kid, but still, that was fucked up of me to do, to, like, treat that as a legitimate, like, important criticism of Best of Both Worlds, which is so easy to make fun of. I could have done so much more with it, which is why I reviewed it later on, obviously, which leads into years later. Was it? How many years was it? I'm not gonna count. I think it was like 2. But 2 years later, I made my very popular video on why I wasn't excited for the fan movie, where I reviewed Best of Both Worlds, this time properly. I talked about Eddsworld recap, and I talked for a while about something that very quickly became dated because I didn't do my research. So that was really fun. That was a good idea of me to... A good idea from good old Riley. Now, if you just look at, like, the Best of Both Worlds review on its own, I really like that video. I think I made some great points. I think they hold up still. But I'm really iffy on everything else in that video. I just want to make that clear. I'm not huge on the way I tackled Eddsworld recap. I don't think I made my opinions very clear, and obviously the video became dated really quickly. Again, I chose not to do my research, so that's a thing that happened. And I think the reason I didn't go as in-depth about the other topics as much as Best of Both Worlds in that video is because Best of Both Worlds is fun to talk about. It's something that I still like talking about because it's fun to riff on, it's fun to make fun of, and it's an interesting thing that it exists, much like the fan movie itself. And I may talk about it a bit in future videos, like I'll talk about Best of Both Worlds in a video. I'm definitely going to be making a video in the future where I talk about gender bend episodes as a concept for one little section of it, and I'm definitely planning on bringing it up in that discussion, but obviously I won't do it a lot. I'll try not to do it a lot because it's been ragged on enough, and obviously the crew considered it enough of a mistake to private it. But I still may mention it in future videos because if I feel like it's worth bringing it up, it is fun to talk about. That's, you know, it is fun to talk about. But just to clarify, if Pip or somebody else important from the crew ever approached me and said, "Hey, don't talk about Best of Both Worlds ever again," I would stop doing it at that very moment because I understand if they do have a problem with that. Even if I see it fit to bring up again, I would respect their wishes if they approach me and tell me not to talk about it, and I would completely understand that. And that goes for anything with me. If, say, like, if Mark Lavallo ever approached me and told me never to talk about any town again, I would respect his wishes, because that's what I like to do now to make up for my past crimes of unjustifiably attacking people for no reason. Anyways, later on after that whole video, right after Tal's Tales of Ecstasy was released, I, literally right after it was released and I watched it, at the premiere date, I wrote the script for the review, and, I reviewed it, and I was very angry in that review, because it didn't seem like the channel had changed since Best of Both Worlds. In fact, in my opinion, it had gotten worse. The comedy in that video completely missed the point of Tom's Tales being amateur improv made by one guy, and none of the jokes were even remotely original or well executed, besides maybe one of them. And they included I don't know what else to call it, a joke that I find extremely disrespectful. I'm not gonna speak on behalf of Ed or the people close to him, obviously, I can't speak for them, but, holy shit, dude, that's not cool. It's not funny, it's not entertaining, this is a comedy video, and you're mentioning Ed's death in such a goofy tone that it makes me legitimately uncomfortable, it makes me legitimately feel sick. In hindsight, I feel like my anger in that video was quite, I don't know how to describe it other than cringy, looking back, but I feel like it was very justified. I mean, I couldn't even really contain my anger while recording the video. It made me feel sick just thinking about it while recording the audio for that video. But what I learned after posting that video from basically everyone on the crew who commented on that video, who was very kind about what I was saying and what I was doing, then they commented that it was Mark's decision to post it. It was a project made 2 years before it was posted, and it was just posted without most of the crew's knowledge until, the last minute. So, yeah, that was a weird thing to happen, but like Best of Both Worlds, the video was taken down, and for good reason, in my opinion, but unlike Best of Both Worlds, I never want to talk about Tal's Tales ever again. It's not worth mentioning ever again after the end of this sentence. I don't want to talk about it, or look at it, or think about it ever again. I hate it. It's bad. I don't like it. But anyways, now I want to talk about things that I didn't even mention in my previous videos on the fan movie. Recently I just thought of all these reasons the fan movie just wouldn't work, other than the ones I mentioned in my videos. And they all, really, they clicked in my head, while I was watching the live stream update. They all kind of, all these individual little thoughts kind of came together, while I was watching it, because I was watching it, while it was live streaming, because I am subscribed to their channel, because I want to keep up with them. But anyways, the first thought I had was pretty obvious, but, the very first sign that the fan movie was not going to go over well was, the false promises. I find it actually insane that the crew expected to release the movie in 2014 when they barely had any animation to show for it in 2013. Animation takes such a long time, I'm surprised they went for such a bold move. And this is a pretty obvious point to make against the fan movie, which is kind of why I didn't mention it in my videos, and it became this huge meme throughout the fandom, yeah, the Eddsworld Fan Movie, coming in 2014. That stuff's all over my comment section of that Eddsworld Fan Movie video. But it does annoy me that they made the initial promise of 2014. I know it was because they wanted it to come out on, the 10th anniversary of Eddsworld, but, just say coming soon, just to be safe. Though I bet they realized that, after 2014 passed, that they should have done that. So I won't say anything else about that. I think it was pretty obvious to bring up, but I also feel like I couldn't not mention it with the amount of comments I've gotten about it saying, oh yeah, and they made the promise of it being released in 2014, yeah, I know, I saw the trailer, I know. Another pretty obvious thing was that the plot kept getting rewritten. Pip has talked about how the original plot was really muddled and had way too many elements and subplots and conflicts that clashed with one another. And I guess this is the sort of problem with making a movie out of Eddsworld in the first place. I don't think it would be impossible, but I feel like Eddsworld is just such a hard thing to replicate in a fan project, especially in the format of a movie, because a movie requires a cohesive, focused plot. And even if the crew made an official movie, first of all, that would take years, and secondly, it would still probably be a mess. And this is because plot was never the most important aspect of the show. It was always about the characters, and while the episodes followed a general timeline or even a story, the plots are so bare bones and simple to leave room for jokes that making a movie out of the plot of any of the episodes would be incredibly difficult, and it would almost require the pace to be slowed down, unless they wanted to go with the whole convoluted plot that was originally gonna happen in Mark's original vision of the movie. I feel like some things just work best in small doses, and I find that Eddsworld does not lend itself to be a 90-minute long project, or hell, even an hour-long project. A half hour, maybe. I feel like I can think of a couple of episodes where, particularly the end, that maybe could have benefited or would have worked fine if it was half an hour long, but I mean, the end's the only episode I can think of where the runtime would need to be so long. In my opinion, it's not really that good of an episode. But anyways, a movie length just wouldn't work for Eddsworld. I don't see how it would, and it being a fan project makes it even harder to pull off because the style and the pacing of the humor in the show is crafted in such a way where it's basically impossible to replicate. I mean, they tried it with Best of Both Worlds and the mini-sode that shall not be named, and they both crashed and burned. So I feel like the project itself was already put at such a disadvantage that I don't feel like it would have turned out good either way. And it's not that, like, the writers are bad writers. I feel like this entire project is like walking on a tightrope. I feel like it would just be really hard to pull off, and I can't see how it would be pulled off. And another thing, the minisodes. All they did was slow down production of the movie. They were really just distractions from the project the crew actually promised. I guess because the crew felt they needed to release more content. I don't really know why else they would, but not only were basically none of them better than serviceable, in my opinion, but they didn't really do anything to benefit the channel or the project, although, admittedly, Best of Both Worlds did leave a huge impact on the fandom, which, the Tommy Bear made a great video talking about Best of Both Worlds that I would highly recommend. I'll probably link it in the description below. So, the fan movie was apparently canceled for legal reasons, and I believe it has a lot to do with Eddsworld coming back and, copyright and all that fun stuff. Basically, I'm assuming that because Eddsworld is back, Matt does not want the fan movie to be made, and, while I am allowed to talk about Eddsworld because my videos fall under fair use laws since they are reviews, the fan movie, and likely the minisodes as well, are not considered fair use in this case, to my knowledge. While reviews are a clear case of fair use, fan projects seem to be a bit more complicated in that regard, so not fully 100% sure. But what I am 100% sure on is that you should not harass Matt about this. He has been incredibly supportive of the fan movie crew. A lot of the crew were hired onto the official Eddsworld team. Just don't harass him. Please, do not do it. I shouldn't have to say that, but this fandom is insane, so I am specifically telling you to not do it. Okay? Okay. Regardless of that, it doesn't seem like anything substantial will ever come of the fan movie itself. Though Pip did mention in the live stream that the original characters created for the movie, like General McCoy, might have their own original story unrelated to Eddsworld, but that's the most I'd expect from the crew, and honestly, I think that's a much better idea than using them in a fan project, because that means the humor and the style, it doesn't have to fit the mold of Eddsworld, and there can be much more freedom to do it in a different way. Fun fact about a lot of the stories that are floating around in my head that I want to tell someday, a lot of them were initially fan projects and AUs for existing stories, and I chose to make them their own thing because it gave me the freedom to do different things with the projects and make the characters their own people and change the plot around and all that stuff. So I'm all for the crew creating something original with their characters, and I'll probably see it if it gets made. So yeah, on that note, that was just a couple of thoughts about the whole Eddsworld Fan Movie project. I feel like this video has no real conclusion or anything, but then again, neither does the Eddsworld Fan Movie, so... Bye!
And thank you for, being cool, being the cool part of the fandom. You guys were the cool part of the fandom. We would have a hard time dealing with people anywhere else in terms of the Eddsworld fandom, but the movie fandom was always the cool part of the fandom. I loved being able to brag about the fan movie fans being the coolest fans. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even saying shit just to sap you guys up. You guys really were. You guys really are the fucking coolest part of the whole fucking fandom, and I cherish that. Love you guys.